So today, I'm going to show you 5 edible plants you should plant with caution. Not because they're bad plants, they're not.
For each one, I'll show you how it spreads, where I'd put it, what mistake causes trouble, and the simplest way to keep it useful instead of annoying.
With plants like these, don't just ask, will it grow? Ask, where will it go if it grows really well?
Number 1 is Sunchokes, also called Jerusalem artichokes. And right away, the name is a mess. They are not from Jerusalem, and they are not artichokes. They are actually related to sunflowers, which makes sense once you see them growing tall at the back of a garden. But the part people grow them for is underground. Sunchokes make knobby tubers that look a little like ginger and cook more like a root vegetable. You can roast them, slice them into a skillet, blend them into soup, or mix them with potatoes, carrots, onions, and garlic for a cold weather meal. The reason they belong on this list is simple. Once you grow them, they usually want to come back. That's not magic, it's just the tubers. When you dig them up, small pieces are easy to miss, and if a few stay behind, those pieces can grow into next year's plants. That's wonderful in the right spot. It's miserable in the wrong one. So I wouldn't plant sunchokes in the middle of a tidy vegetable bed. I would give them a place of their own. A back corner, a strip along the fence, a dedicated raised bed, or a big container where you can dump the soil out and actually find the tubers. Loose soil makes a big difference. They may grow in heavier ground, but when harvest time comes, you're the one digging. They also get tall, so think about shade. A sunchoke patch along the wrong side of a bed can block sun from shorter crops. Along a back fence, that height can be useful.
This is one of those plants where the location matters more than the plant does. Put it where coming back is not a problem.
That's the whole trick. In the kitchen, don't treat the harvest like a cute little garnish. If the patch does well, you may bring in more than expected. Roast some, cook some into soup, and store what you can properly. One note, and it matters. Some people find sunchokes hard on the stomach, especially if they eat a big serving the first time. So start small and see how your household handles them. The mistake with sunchokes is planting them casually. They are not casual. They are a food patch. Give them a patch you actually meant to have. Number 2 is blackberries. Most people understand the fruit. Blackberries feel easy to love. Cobbler, jam, pancakes, yogurt, sauce, a handful straight from the cane. Nobody needs a long speech to understand why you'd want them. The part people underestimate is the plant. A blackberry is not one polite little bush sitting quietly by the fence. It becomes a cane system. And once that system gets ahead of you, picking berries turns into reaching through a tangle and wondering which cane is alive, which one already fruited, and which one should have been removed last season. If I were planting blackberries in a backyard, I would start with the structure, not the plant. A defined row, a trellis if the variety needs it, posts and wire if you can manage that. Enough room to walk along the row. And if thorns are going to keep you from picking, pruning, or even going near the thing, look seriously at thornless types. Blackberries like sun and well-drained soil. But the bigger issue here is access. You need to reach the fruit, see the canes, and get in there when pruning is due. A lot of blackberry problems start with one sentence. I'll deal with that later. Later becomes old canes, new canes, suckers, thorns, and berries ripening where nobody can comfortably reach them.
And that's when half the crop goes to the birds because nobody wants to wrestle the patch.
Right. So don't plant blackberries as an afterthought. Give them a row. Keep that row narrow. Train new growth while it is still young enough to move. After fruiting, remove the old canes according to the type you're growing, and buy a variety that actually fits your region, because blackberry behavior can vary. The kitchen side is the easy reward. Fresh berries are wonderful, but they don't wait around forever. If a big picking comes in, freeze them flat on a tray first, then bag them once they're solid. That keeps you from ending up with one frozen brick.
And if they're starting to soften, I stop pretending they're going to be eaten fresh. I cook them down into sauce or compote. That saves a lot of refrigerator guilt.
That's a good rule for any berry patch. Blackberries can feed you for years, but only if the patch is built like something you plan to maintain. Not every day, not constantly. Just enough that the plant does not turn the harvest into a fight.
If you do that little bit of management, a blackberry row can feed you for years and earn its space quickly.
Number 3 is Egyptian walking onions. This one is smaller, but don't underestimate it. It will not replace a pantry full of onions, but a little patch of walking onions can save you more grocery store scallions than you'd think. The plant gives you green onion-style tops, small bubbles at the top of the stalk, and underground bulbs. Once it gets established, it keeps multiplying. And the way it moves is the part everybody remembers. Instead of making all its little bulbs underground, walking onions form bulbils up at the top of the stalk. As those bulbils get heavier, the stalk bends down. When the bulbils touch the soil, they can root and become new plants. That is how the patch walks. Not overnight. You're not going to wake up and find onions knocking on the back door.
Although I still think that would make a pretty good cartoon. Little onions marching across the porch.
I'd watch that.
Oh my goodness, Bill. Can you imagine if walking onions actually walked? We'd wake up and find them invading the house.
But in real life, it is slower. The problem comes when nobody harvests the bulbils, nobody divides the clump, and nobody pays attention to where the stalks are falling. A few seasons later, what started as a funny novelty has become a messy onion colony. The good news is that walking onions are easier to manage than a lot of plants because you can see what they're doing. If the tops are tender, cut and use them. If the bulbils are mature, harvest some before they fall. If a clump gets crowded, divide it. If a stalk is bending into a place you don't want onions, clip it before it roots. They like sun and well-drained soil, like most onions. I would plant them in a small dedicated patch, along a bed edge, near the kitchen door, or in a spot where you can actually remember to use them. Because that is the real mistake with walking onions, treating them like a curiosity instead of a kitchen plant. People plant them because the name is funny. They watch the little bulbils form, they show a neighbor once, and then they don't actually cook with them. Use the green tops while they're tender. Chop them over eggs, potatoes, beans, rice, soup, or roasted vegetables. The bulbils can be cooked or pickled in small amounts. The underground bulbs can be used more like small onions.
If the tops are getting ahead of me, I chop them and freeze them in small portions. Not fancy, just practical. Then they're ready for soup, eggs, rice, or potatoes.
That is the difference between a useful patch and a plant collection. Walking onions earn their place when they're close enough, tidy enough, and useful enough that you actually harvest them. Number 4 is strawberries. And this is the one that fools people because it looks so sweet. You plant a few small strawberry plants, and for a while, they sit there looking harmless. Then the runners start. A strawberry plant doesn't just make fruit, it sends thin stems across the soil. Wherever those runners touch down and root, new plants can form. That is wonderful if you want the patch to fill in. It is less wonderful when the bed turns into a crowded mat and the berries start getting smaller, hidden, or moldy under all those leaves. So with strawberries, the job is not to stop every runner. The job is to decide where the patch is allowed to be. If a runner lands in a good open spot, let it root. If it heads into another crop or a place where you won't be able to reach the fruit, clip it. If you want new plants somewhere else, root a few in small pots and move them later. That one habit changes the whole patch. Strawberries want sun for good fruit. They may survive with less, but the harvest usually tells the truth. They also need well-drained soil. Soggy soil and crowded leaves are where trouble starts. Pay attention when planting too. The crown, that little place where the roots meet the leaves, should sit around the soil line. Too deep, and the plant can rot. Too high, and the roots can dry out. But after that, the big management issue is space. More strawberry plants do not always mean more strawberries. At first, runners feel like free plants, and they are. But once the bed gets too crowded, airflow drops, berries hide, fruit gets smaller, and you start losing harvest before you even see it.
And strawberries are not patient fruit. You get excited, eat them fresh for 2 days, then suddenly the bowl in the fridge is looking sad.
That happens. So have a simple kitchen plan. Eat the best ones fresh. Freeze extras on a tray before bagging them. Cook soft ones into sauce or compost instead of letting them collapse in the refrigerator. Use them in oatmeal, pancakes, smoothies, yogurt, baking, or jam. Strawberries can be one of the most rewarding spreading plants in a backyard. They can cover soil, multiply for free, and give you fruit in a space that would otherwise be bare. But they still need steering. Let them fill the space you chose. Don't let them quietly choose the space for you. Number 5 is sweet potatoes. Now this one is a little different from the others. In most of the United States, sweet potatoes are not a permanent patch like sunchokes, walking onions, blackberries, or strawberries. For most backyard gardeners, they are a warm season crop. You plant slips after the soil warms, let the vines run through summer, and harvest before cold weather damages them. So why are they on this list? Because in one good season, sweet potatoes can absolutely take over a sunny patch. A slip looks small when you plant it, almost too small. But once heat arrives and the plant gets going, the vines can spill over a raised bed, cross a path, shade the soil, and cover ground fast. Planned well, that is useful. The vines can help shade bare soil and compete with weeds. Planted carelessly, they can smother young herbs, greens, seedlings, or anything that needs light and airflow. Sweet potatoes want heat, full sun, a long enough season, and loose, well-drained soil where the roots can expand. Heavy, compacted ground can give you smaller or twisted roots that are harder to dig. And be careful with nitrogen. Too much can give you a beautiful jungle of vines and a disappointing harvest underneath. With sweet potatoes, the leaves are not the whole story. The trick is to give them more room than the slip seems to need. A raised bed can work if the vines are allowed to spill over the sides. A sunny strip along a fence can work. A deep container can work if you keep up with watering.
What I would not do is squeeze sweet potatoes into a crowded bed and hope they stay polite.
They will not. At harvest, dig carefully. Fresh skins can bruise easily, and damaged roots don't store as well. If you want them to keep, curing matters. They need warmth and humidity for the skins to toughen and the flavor to improve.
And once they're cured, they're one of the easiest harvests to actually use. Baked, roasted, mashed, soup, hash, wedges, pie. There's no mystery there.
Exactly. Sweet potatoes are not hard to love in the kitchen. The planting is mostly outside. Give the vines space. Don't overfeed the leaves. Let the roots size up. Harvest before cold damages the crop.
It starts as one small slip. By the end of the season, if things go well, you may be carrying in a basket of food.
So Bill, if someone likes the idea of these plants but doesn't want to spend the next few years fighting them, where do they start?
I'd start before the plant ever touches the soil. People hear easy to grow and assume that means easy to manage. But sometimes a plant is easy to grow because it is strong, persistent, and very good at spreading. That can be useful. You just have to think one step ahead. Before I plant anything that spreads, I ask 3 questions.
First, how does this plant move? Sunchokes move underground through tubers. Strawberries move with runners. Walking onions move from the top when the bulbils fall and root. Blackberries spread through canes, suckers, and new growth that needs training. Sweet potatoes sprawl across the ground and need room above and below. You do not need to memorize every botanical detail. Just know the habit before you plant. Second, where can this plant spread without causing trouble? That might be a large container, a dedicated bed, a strip along the fence, a trellis row, or a sunny patch where vines can run without burying smaller crops. What you do not want is a vigorous plant competing with little seedlings, young herbs, tender greens, or crops that need airflow.
Harvesting is not the finish line. You still have to decide what gets cooked, frozen, shared, stored, or used first.
Third, will you actually use what this plant gives us? A spreading plant feels generous when the harvest is being cooked, frozen, shared, stored, or picked often. Otherwise, the garden gives you food and the fridge quietly turns it into guilt. These are not delicate little plants waiting around for perfect conditions. Most of them are ready to grow hard, spread out, and take up space. If you give that energy somewhere useful to go, you can turn a potential problem into food.
And if you already grow one of these, we would love to hear. Did it behave? Did it spread more than you expected? Or did you find a good way to use the harvest? Or whether you'd only plant it now in a pot, a raised bed, or far away from the plants that behave themselves.
Thanks for spending time with us here in the backyard. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.